I remember when I first played Mark of Kri. It was impressive to say the least. It looked great and the action was visceral, and it included a stealth system. I can completely understand why it got such good critical acclaim when it first came out. The gameplay would switch between hack and slash, then to stealth in mere minutes. Plus, you have a very appealing art style, with a decent story to boot. It sounds, on paper, as the Deus Ex of third-person action games. Unfortunately, though I hate to say it, but time has not been good to Mark of Kri. Its combat is monotonous as hell, its stealth system is plagued by cheap AI, and the level design is mixed at best. This was often a slog to play through. The story, though, is pretty decent. It follows Rao, a young warrior who's seeking adventure early on, but soon turns to stopping an evil spell coming to fruition, the Mark of Kri. The voice acting is good, for the time, though some deliveries are better than others. But the narrator is a friggin' badass.
They were camped out in some local ruins. He had also heard that they were many in number and skilled as swordsmen. Good. Good. My master did not want this to be too easy.
But for me, what sells it is its very eye-catching presentation. Between levels, you get a very cool little still frame that is speed-drawn in front of you, while you listen to the narrator boast about Rao. Unfortunately, some characters are not given enough personalization for you to really care about them, which it tries to do near the end. I can't care about this person if they only had a few lines of dialogue. Graphically speaking, it looks really good. Environments are varied, all of which just pop with colour and detail. The animations on the models look great across the board, giving a real sense of fluidity. Many describe Mark of Kri as a more mature Disney movie, and the art style clearly shows that. Now the music is worth of note, heavily leaning on fast drum beats that create a very naturalistic vibe to the gameplay. Now the combat is a bit different in how simplified it is compared to other action games. Instead of locking onto an enemy, you use your analog sticks to assign either X, square or circle buttons to the enemy you want to attack. The idea is that you can press the corresponding buttons to attack different enemies quickly. For the most part it works. Finishing moves are brutally satisfying, switching from one opponent to another is helpful, and you get some weapons like the staff and a deadly axe that wrecks everything. It shows a decent amount of thought, but it never evolves past simple button mashing. Whatever button you've assigned to an enemy is the only button you need to press besides occasionally blocking incoming attacks. Yes, you do have combos, but pulling them off is far too risky, since a single mistake can lead you to losing half your health, and you can be easily interrupted by other attacks, since you're frequently surrounded to up to a dozen enemies, which is far more than you can actually lock onto. With different weapons, it still doesn't change, divulging into a boring affair. Mostly when I died in combat, it wasn't because of the actual skill of the enemy, but instead it was me just getting completely bored by it and slipping up or the crappy camera getting stuck on the ground. It doesn't help that it's near impossible to leave combat because enemies will just latch onto Rao, quickly ending you. For some reason, just changing weapons is a massive pain, so you have to completely stop and awkwardly use the R2 button and the analog stick, then watch Rao slowly change equipment, all the while you're getting attacked again and again. They've added environmental features like having a sword getting stuck in wood or bouncing off stone, which is not a bad idea, but your opponents aren't ever affected by this at all, even though it seems like they're using the same equipment as you. Onto stealth. Again, it works for the most part. You can sneak up and execute foes behind them or around walls. You can even take out two enemies at once. It's very contextual. As soon as you can stealth kill, nothing can stop you. The animations get samey pretty quickly. You'll be using the bow a lot for these sections, picking off enemies from a distance, trying to get a one-hit kill. You can actually abuse the weapon on unarmored targets since it's so effective, but the armored targets, well, not so much. With the bow, you can distract enemies with animals and different noises. It's pretty rudimentary, since they'll never think on turning around, and it feels awfully convenient that a random pig or bell was just there. Unfortunately, the stealth lacks the more intricate features found in other games of the genre, like Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid. For one, once enemies are alerted, they never go back to a default position, so you have to forget about hiding or running away. To spot enemies in the environment, you're meant to use Kuso, your spirit guide, which is an interesting idea since you have to quickly switch between Kuso's vision to Rao's to keep pace. But you're never sure what the line of sight of other enemies are, so a lot of the time you're guessing what they can see, leading to a lot of trial and error. That's bad, but what's worse is the overabundance of enemy archers. Enemy projectiles are deadly against you, taking off chunks of health in a heartbeat. They can fire much further than you, meaning that while they're out of reach, you're not. Now combine armored archers that cannot be killed by your projectiles, and enemies that always remain on alert, and how you die very quickly soon leads to an infuriating stealth system where if you make a single mistake, you have to die. No other way. That's just bad game design. See, levels are a complete mixed bag, because it constantly shifts between all-out action one moment to slow stealth in a few minutes. You don't have a choice here. Between one playstyle or another, you're constantly being forced into it. I'd be okay if it was for a specific level, but it's not. But there are moments of genius where you're using a great combination of action and stealth in the environment, and it's great. You're allowed to make mistakes, but there are always ways to get through it. But these parts are just too far in number to the pain which is the rest of the game. And don't get me started on the awful save system. In Mark of Kri, you don't get checkpoints, you instead save your progress, much like Hitman. But here, you only have one save slot, so yes, you can easily get stuck at some point of the level and be forced to restart, losing whatever progress you had in the level. This is one of the few games where I've had to use 2 memory cards to get through it. Mark of Kri is an odd one to say the least. I want to love it, I really do, but it lacks the entertaining combat of Devil May Cry, and it's not nearly as polished as stealth games like Metal Gear Solid or Tenchu. But for some reason or another, it kept me engrossed from beginning to end. Though it is a short game, 6 hours max, it was still a memorable one, which is more than I can say for a lot of games I've played. Not a bad game, but not one I can outright recommend. Those looking for something different might enjoy it, especially for its low price point.